The session now is Development by Design, Scripting the Next Global Growth Story. But before we proceed to the session, it is with distinct honor and privilege that we launch a joint report that we at ORF have put together along with Bisleri. You will find a copy of the report laid out on your tables. The report is a vision of water governance for Viksit Bharat at 2047, markets, institutions, and imperatives. Can I request my colleagues to please play the AV? As speakers of this session, it is our honor to invite Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bhutan, Foreign Affairs and External Trade of Bhutan, D.N. Dungel, to the stage. Sir, if I may please invite you on the stage. Nuaru Jumane Magembe, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tanzania. Angelo George, Chief Executive Officer, Bisleri, India. Anna Katharina Horange, Director of the German Institute of Development and Sustainability and Professor of Global Sustainable Development at the University of Bonn in Germany. Archana Vyas, Country Director, India Country Office, Gates Foundation. And the moderator for this session is Chandrika Bahadur, Chief Executive Officer at the Antara Foundation, India. Ma'am, over to you.
Good morning. Are we audible? Yes. Okay. Namaskar and welcome to this opening session. About a quarter of a century ago, the post-war international order was premised on three pillars. The first pillar was economic growth and prosperity, and thereby a reduction in poverty, driven by creation of jobs and the free movement of goods and services. The second pillar was investment, privately, publicly, multilaterally, towards building social capital and human capital, health, education, skills, employment, participation. The third pillar was a joint recognition that global cooperation was essential to be custodians of the largest public good that we have, which is our planet. And that was the focus on global warming and transitions to clean energy. All these three pillars today are at a point of rupture. The panel today is going to talk about how do we bring people back at the center of a development agenda moving forward. So with that, let me first turn to Your Excellency to ask, in this current international order, what do you see the role of Bhutan in both helping shape the future, and also what do you see Bhutan needing from a new international order that could put your people at the center of development?
Thank you, Chandrika, and good morning to everybody. Welcome my panelist friends here on the dais. It's always a pleasure to be here to attend this Regina Dialogue. This is my third time that I'm attending this fabulous program. I'd like to thank the ORF and the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, for all these arrangements and taking very good care of us. Now, coming back to straight on the question, the theme of today's panel discussion is on development by design. Well, back in Bhutan, we have the concept of gross national happiness, that talks about equitable and sustainable socio-economic development, conservation and preservation of culture and environment, all that is supported and helped by good governance. Now, if we have to have really this development by design in this turbulent world order that is going on at the moment, we need to look at sustainability as our focus and move forward in our development agenda. Here in India, what I can share here is a global South is going to play a major role, and I must congratulate and commend India for the great leadership in the global South for all of us. Now, with the GNH philosophy as a background for development in Bhutan, we have started or almost graduated to start the Galefu Mindfulness City, the project that is the vision of His Majesty the King, a project that will focus on sustainable development, that will focus on wellness and good living, that will focus on environment and green energy. This mindfulness city that will be spread over 2,500 square kilometer is going to be a new city, a special administrative region that is going to give the world as well as the region an opportunity for investment, an opportunity to be part of it, and be a leader in whatever area or structure that you are good in. It's going to have an independent judiciary, an independent legislature, and also an independent administration, almost a different country within a country. And it will have a system of one whole country with two new systems. Now, in this turbulent world, if we have to really go for sustainability and have that say or strength in our day-to-day work, development by design would be one thing I think that we should focus on. For Bhutan, as a small economy with a small population, the strength that we have is in our uniqueness only, and we will not be able to compete in numbers or in other aspects. Therefore, this Gelefu Mindfulness City, the vision of His Majesty the King, is going to shape not only the future of Bhutan, but as well the future of the neighborhood as well as the world. At the moment, the focus is on connectivity. That's what we are doing at the moment. The airport project is going on, and subsequently, we will be taking up different projects, focusing mostly on our Vajrayana Buddhism philosophy. Therefore, for Bhutan to take up this in the future is going to be very, very crucial. And till date, we started this with a great support from government and people of India, from the leadership of government of India, And through their support only, we are able to take forward and we are working towards the achievement of this goal on the mindfulness city. As well, I must commend and I must thank the government of India for all the developmental support as well as support in the production of green energy, the hydropower sector that is going on. And in this aspect, I must put on record the very big support given by government of India till date and look forward to their support even in future. Having said this, I think I will stop here to give it to our other panelists and maybe come back later with Madam Chandrika's permission to share my thoughts on the energy sector as I take up next. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Mindfulness City, what an absolutely incredible idea. I think we need to hear more about this. Maybe if I can turn to Your Excellency, Minister Magambe, if, where the Honorable Minister left off was in terms of he touched upon the issue of energy. Now, any kind of development paradigm rests on energy security. And with the current environment as you see it, how do you see Tanzania navigating its energy transitions over the next couple of decades?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Before I contribute to this discussion, I would first like to express my sincere appreciation to our host, the Honorable Dr. Jaishankar, the Minister of External Affairs of India, for inviting me to join the 11th edition of this Raisina Dialogue. I also want to thank the people and the government of India for their wonderful hospitality that they've extended to us since our arrival in this beautiful city. I arrived here to witness the celebrations of Holi, very colorful, very warm, and truly a wonderful religious and social event. Excellencies, the Raisina Dialogue is yet another manifestation of India's important role in multilateral diplomacy. This dialogue brings us together diverse participants from around the world to discuss the challenges and issues facing the global community and explore opportunities for cooperation in addressing them. I want to thank you for this commendable approach, for its quite good form and good for humanity, and Tanzania stands tall and we stand together with you. Now to the subject at hand. Madam Moderator, energy security is crucial for national stability, economic growth, and environmental sustainability. Once a country is energy secured, it can ensure stable, reliable, and affordable energy supply for all sectors of society. And indeed, one of my colleagues calls it the lifeblood of modern economies, because if you have it as a reliable and consistent input, then it will feed into your manufacturing sector, it will feed into agriculture, it will feed into all the service sectors. Underscoring this importance, Tanzania has made tremendous efforts to expand its energy resources for its power generation. We have made good progress with electricity consumption per capita currently at approximately 170 kilowatt hours. And the aim is to significantly increase this to about 3,000 kilowatt hours by 2050. The government is heavily investing in hydropower, solar, wind, gas, and geothermal sources. Recently, and notably, we completed the Julius Nyerere Hydro Power Project with the capacity to generate about 2,115 megawatts, which has significantly enhanced our national grid capacity, providing reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy access. Also, as a country, we have made a big effort to reduce transmission losses. We used to have losses of about 16%, but by upgrading our national grid, we're now at about 10%, and we're still working to reduce these losses. At regional level, we have positioned ourselves as a strategic leader in global and continental energy discussions, particularly in advancing clean cooking solutions and expanding access to modern energy services. We have been engaging strongly in major international energy platforms to demonstrate our strong commitment to sustainable energy security, climate action, and gender-responsive energy policies. For instance, in May 2024, Her Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, with other stakeholders, co-hosted the Summit on Clean Cooking in Africa, and emerged as a leading champion for clean cooking on the African continent. The discussions emphasized the urgent need to move away from biomass fuels. I remember when I was growing up, when I would go visit my grandparents in the Kilimanjaro highlands, every evening we'd go into her hut, and because it's warm, it's quite cold up there, but the smoke was terrible. And you can imagine, they've been living with this all their life. It's just air pollution is really terrible. Our president has been championing clean cooking solutions. And a lot of our women have been given free gas cookers, and we appreciate all our partners who assist us with this. Again, as you may recall, in January of 2025, Tanzania co-hosted the Mission 300 Energy Summit with the African Development Bank and the World Bank. We brought together 20 African heads of state and different stakeholders, and the goal is to bring electricity to 300 million Africans. Currently, as the statistics stand, about 600 million Africans don't have electricity. The goal of this summit is to ensure that at least half of that number by 2034 have been given electricity. I'm very happy to say that we have gained a lot of traction from our international partners. During the summit, we got pledges of about 50 billion United States dollars, so it was really a big step in the right direction. Tanzania, under the able leadership of President Samia Suluhu Hassan, is an African champion of the clean cooking agenda, and we have since adopted a national clean cooking energy strategy aimed at significantly reducing the use of the polluting cooking solutions that I talked about. And our strategy is going to cost about $1.8 billion over the next 10 years, but we're committed to it. Our president is really committed to it, and it's one of the things that she wants to significantly tackle before she leaves office in 2030. And our goal as Tanzania is we have reaffirmed our commitment to ensure that 80% of Tanzanian households have access to clean cooking solutions by 2034. And in closing, I know, Madam Moderator, you gave us 4 minutes. This is why I'm jumping here and there, trying to slash as much as I can. In closing, we invite the world to join our efforts. And first and foremost, in supporting our clean cooking agenda and its initiatives. And secondly, we are open for business. We are open for investors. We are open for investment in energy infrastructures, hydropower, solar, wind, geothermal, and even nuclear energy to ensure sufficient energy supply. I will stop there. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Minister. Let's turn now to Archana to ask you, what do you see as the major sources of financing for development in particular? Where do you see shifts and where do you see opportunities?
Thank you, and thank you, Excellencies, my fellow panelists, Ministry of External Affairs and ORF for hosting Rise in Our Dialogues. And, I'm here to learn from various sessions. It is one of the most spectacular event that's hosted in India. So I also take the opportunity to welcome all of you here. It is a pertinent panel. Few shifts that I would speak about. One is yes, it is a more multipolar world. It is more fragmented, and the world is more shock prone today. So, from a development perspective, the development cannot be linear as the global order continues to be unstable. Um, so, the question that you spoke about, it's not necessarily that we should be thinking about how countries grow as far as their GDP is concerned through an integrated global order, but it is about how countries can be more, how can growth be more resilient, how can growth be more inclusive. That's an issue that we as an organization, Gates Foundation, focuses on. The question that you asked in terms of how should countries be thinking about their own financing? So few points there. One, I would say, is that the growth models definitely need to be more diverse. It is no longer about low-cost manufacturing export, but countries need to be thinking about growth engines that are more diversified. For that, in a country like India, that we work very closely, the government is thinking a lot more about women-led development, so that the development is more driven by women. They're not recipient, but they are an equal participant when it comes to growth. The other thing that I would speak about is that I'd point out is really about growth that is fueled by digital technologies. It's not necessarily, digital is no longer an innovation. Digital public infrastructure, especially in a country like India, where DPI is an exemplar, it's not necessarily an innovation, but it is an operating system on which the country is growing. And one of the fundamental example there is about how much of saving DPI has generated from public finance management. It is about, we hear of a figure of about $3 billion that have been saved as a result of digital public infrastructures. And therefore, countries in Global South, they're thinking about economic growth. The DPI can generate that growth. It can be a diversified source of domestic resource mobilization. The other thing that we need to think about is also being resilient means thinking about climate shocks right from the start. Especially, I do have my panelists, one from Bhutan, where they do face climate vulnerability, as well as Tanzania, that's thinking a lot more about urbanizing their own economy, and therefore the economies need to be more adaptive right from the start. They need to be thinking about resilient delivery, because we're a global southern country where there's a lot of implementation that takes place, and therefore resilient delivery systems need to be thought about. As far as your question on financing is concerned, we've heard a lot more. We are in 21st century, but the system is that of 20th century. And therefore, the risk-sharing capabilities between public, private, as well as philanthropic capital like ours need to be thought of. Stronger domestic fiscal systems, no longer dependency on external donor, because the alternative is not necessarily getting in more donors. The alternative is really being more resilient domestic financing. And then the multilateral institutions that need to be acting more as catalytic investor themselves and also shock absorbers. So those are the points that I would like to make in terms of financing. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And that's a perfect segue, Dr. Anna Katharina. If you can talk a little bit about this last point that we just heard about, which is the multilateral system. Clearly not working at this moment in the way it was intended to. Where do you see global cooperation? What kind of structures and institutions do you think are going to drive progress, particularly in emerging economies?
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, a big thank you from my side for the invitation by the government of India, by ORF. It is a real pleasure and honor to be here and be able to speak to you. Now, Yeah, the multilateral is undergoing substantial reforms. If you look at the United Nations, we observe the reform processes. We know that it is not delivering to the degree as the world needs it to be. We saw this last year. We saw it in Brazil at the climate negotiations. We also saw in South Africa, if we move from the multilateral to the plurilateral on the level of the G20, that the possibilities to find agreement were not actually pursued as much. And often actually it was also in many ways countries, CO2 intensive countries from the north that did not necessarily step up to what was needed and expected. And overall, I think it is important to realize that while we have a situation where the multilateral system has to undergo reform, and that will take time, plurilateral formats as well as regional forms of organization gain more and more relevance in enabling decision-taking, joint decision-taking, that then sometimes also makes the joint decision-taking on the multilateral level again more likely. And here we think of the G20 that was mentioned already, or the BRICS context. India has the BRICS presidency this year, but also regional organizations such as the European Union in the case of where I come from, or the African Union, or also then, of course, setups within free trade area of free trade agreements, for instance, here the India-European EU agreement. So I think that is relevant in order to then reflect on the process of thinking into the direction of an Agenda 2030 and beyond, a post-2030 agenda. We have to keep in mind that it was mentioned already, the underlying mega trends, environmental, climatic, biodiversity related mega trends, the ecological ones, just as much as the economic challenges, social justice questions, but also political challenges that create the basis for an Agenda 2030 so far. They continue to exist. They actually unfold more and more dangerous dynamics between them. And at the same time, so it's very much needed to start now already to think towards a post-2030 agenda, but to also do that in the settings, the institutional settings that we have. So in the plurilateral contexts, in the regional formats, and then carry this into the discussions on the General Assembly level. We here have the independent group of scientists that was brought together in September last year and is going to issue their Global Sustainable Development Report in 2027 as then a basis for the discussions at the SDG Summit in 2027. So an important instrument to channel some of the discussions and carry also the discussions in different regions, in different plurilateral settings together. And I would like to underline that I think it's very important to in all of these discussions to keep in mind that the Agenda 2030 or any type of post-2030 agenda is indeed a cooperation agenda. And that in a situation where the world is more and more reaching basically a tipping point, where it becomes clear we are moving into a multipolar world. Yes, it was mentioned, but is that a multipolar world that continues to be cooperating, continues to come together again and again, also in multilateral settings in order to jointly address some of the global challenges? Or do we actually see a further fragmentation into potentially competing systems and structures of ordering that make even a more destructive form of competition more likely? And I think that's where we are today, at this tipping point. Thus, it's indeed important to invest all we have, I would argue, into discussion processes at the level of the UN, yes, but even more so at the moment at the level of regional organizations and plurilateral settings, in order to carry discussions towards a post-2030 agenda with the logic of having a joint cooperation agenda for future building. Again, thanks.
Thank you very much. Let me now turn to Angelo. We had two of our ministers on this panel very subtly but very clearly indicate that their countries are open for business, right? That was a clear message that came through. And yet, a predictable rules-based international order is a prerequisite for the private sector to really want to put its money in and ensure that that investment is isolated from risk, right? Predictability is a huge proponent of that. Now, how do you think about the role of industry in promoting sustainable development in the context of the unpredictability that we're seeing?
I think the Sustainable Development Goals created the shared ambition. The next phase, I think, should deliver local relevance. And industry could play in this journey a significant role as a co-designer. SDGs fail or succeed on 3 counts: financing, execution, or measurement. Areas where industry has unique capability. Let me put 5 dimensions to what I'm speaking about. The first, industry can translate ambition into implementable targets. Instead of broad language like responsible consumption, the goals should specify outcomes in a way an operating system like a factory can deliver against. For example, circularity targets, collection or recycling, water stewardship measures, the percentage replenishment or the health of the watershed, or energy transitions in terms of the percentage green energy to be used. I believe when implementation becomes measurable, accountability will follow. The second, building delivery infrastructure for circularity. More often, SDGs fail not because of policy gaps, but because the delivery systems are missing. Collection networks, sorting capacity, recycling infrastructure. Industry can invest in this missing middle. Material recovery or recycling facilities, watershed regeneration structures, or even renewable energy for the industrial clusters. You know, we are one of the first company, we are the largest water company in the country, and I'm proud to share that we replenish 4.7 times of the water that we draw from the ground. And we have been one of the first companies to become plastic neutral. We created an ecosystem integrating citizen participation, the informal waste workers, into reliable recycling capacity. The third dimension is about long-term investments that should de-risk the transition into sustainable economy. Sustainable transitions, I think, requires a predictable demand. Industry can de-risk this through multi-year commitments and sustainable infrastructure, make sustainable infrastructure bankable. You know, long-term procurement of recycled materials, the offtake commitments and agreements on green energy, or capex in water usage and recharge. In fact, we have moved 37% of our energy consumption into renewable sources with a 15-year agreement with the producers. In fact, in India, the private sector already contributes 60% of the climate finance. And it shows how industry can actually accelerate transitions at scale. I think the fourth piece in this is about embedding the behavior change into the Sustainable Development Goals architecture. Sustainability is not just infrastructure, it is also about behavior change. Policy succeeds when people start seeing themselves as participants rather than just beneficiaries. Industry influences behavior every day through product design, the packaging choices we make, and the circularity education we can do. Through partnerships with the National Book Trust of India, Bisleri has developed educational books designed to simplify the concepts of circular economy for school children. I think when sustainability becomes a habit early on in life, it scales faster than just by regulation alone. And the last piece is about Global South as a design center for the future. This is where the biggest development challenges and the largest consumer bases today coexist. Over the next decades, the biggest growth would be in the Global South. So industries will start designing for affordability, climate stress, and also dense urbanization. In fact, the other dimension is India's millet movement, for example, shows how indigenous knowledge can become climate smart agriculture, requiring less water while improving soil health and the nutrition. I think the next SDG framework must recognize traditional wisdom as scientific capital. You know, a few years ago, while partnering the Ladakh Marathon, we saw a simple truth. At 11,000 feet, water was not a convenience. It was survival. A single restored water body allowed the farmers to cultivate and the families to remain in the villages. Standing there, one realized that development is not an abstract policy debate. It is about whether communities can stay where they belong. We started restoring one reservoir every year, and last September, we inaugurated the third reservoir of hope, as we call it, each with over 25 million liters capacity, restoring the livelihoods. I think for us, that experience reinforced a powerful lesson. The SDGs created shared ambition. The next phase must deliver local relevance and impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angelo. We are about 10 minutes away from the end of our session, so maybe we will open it up now for audience questions. Please state your name and please ask a brief question, not a comment. Yes, we have one hand up there. So there are three, yeah, the lady in the black blazer, then followed by the, yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Madhura Mahesh. Thank you for the very enlightening discussion here. So the three panelists, even the two ministers, and so they all talked about something called energy security, as well as the need for water security as well in the light of sustainable development goals. But as we see, there is an increasing amount of data centers being built across the world, which are threatening the need for water security in several places. We have seen the cases in America. So in that sense, how do we then grapple this need for development in technology, but at the same time, securing these resources as well?
Great, thank you. We'll just collect a few questions and then take it on. Yeah.
Good morning, panel. I'm Shreya from Nalanda University. I'm pursuing my MBA from there. So my question to the panel is that we have heard a significant number of energy that is being created, renewable energy specifically. But as we move forward towards this transition, are we also looking at the bigger picture, which is the solar waste? So I think that remains a very big question in the industry as we move forward with the renewable energy goals, SDG 7 that is. So are we also looking at, do we have any policies, government interferences which are working towards solar waste? So do we have anything related to that? Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Patryk Kugiel, Polish Institute of International Affairs, Poland. My question is to the whole panel. who will write and set up the next development agenda post SDGs and Agenda 2030. Can possibly India and the European Union as the largest source of development financing and India as a global South leader, can they actually do something together to take a lead in creating this agenda? We've heard from President Stubb 2 days ago that there is a need for New Delhi moment. So maybe in the area of development, we all agree on principles, but how to implement this change to make a more inclusive and effective system of cooperation. Thank you.
Can I ask?
Thank you. I would like to ask specifically Ms. Hornridge because she said something very significant. Historical development, assistance then was framed as economic cooperation. Today, however, we see infrastructure financing, critical minerals investments, and even energy transition funding increasingly shaped by geopolitical competition among major powers. So my question is, does this create new opportunities of the global south to shape development on their own terms? Or does it risk, as you said, turning development finance into another era of strategic rivalry?
Thank you. If there
Can I-
are one,
yeah, here,
one final
this
one,
side.
and then we'll.
So
Oh,
my-
sorry,
yeah,
we have a whole
this
lot here.
side,
Sorry, we have to move here. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Gauri Sareen, and I work in the area of sustainable cities. And we've been talking about, really a range, right, from a very macro, large scale change in the SDG goals to the very micro, something which Sir from Bisleri actually pointed out, what is locally relevant. What is becoming increasingly very, very relevant today world over is how we can look at circularity and sustainability in the whole space of urbanism and sustainable city. My question here is that most of this seems to be driven by communities. How can we engage? How can governments across the world, whether at the multilateral level or at other levels, and the corporates engage with communities who are beginning to understand and feel the breakdown of circularity and sustainability at the local levels
Thank
across
you.
the globe?
Thank you. Two more, and then the panel will respond. Can I just request everyone to ask the question in one sentence, please?
Hello, I'm Tejaswini Parade from Kautilya School of Public Policy, Hyderabad. I wanted to understand that as we were talking about that the center of gravity is shifting towards global south. So what is the future of green energy in global south? And also specifically the future of green hydrogen in the global south?
Good morning to the panel. I am Ansh. I am also a master's student from the Kautilya School of Public Policy. So since 2008, when the Right to Development had come out, the phrase which has been used for the industry was responsibility. But don't you think that in the 16 years that have passed, it is long overdue that we start using the word duty when it comes to the industry for sustainable development, because responsibility is more of a moral obligation rather than a legal one.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the questions. I'm sorry, we'll have to cap it here. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to take a minute to respond to the topics that spoke to them, and also any concluding thoughts. And Minister, maybe we can start with you.
Thank you. I think I'll focus on the first question that was asked on energy and data center and future of green energy being asked by somebody else just later. Green energy is going to be the future of the world, not only of the region, and without sustainable green energy, the development aspects in the world may not take the route that it should take for the benefit of humanity. On the green energy and data center, yes, green energy is ever more important, and with the development of data center throughout, the importance or the requirement of green energy is going to grow ever and ever. I'd like to stop at this only because I have all my panelists here. So please take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I'm very impressed by the questions from the students. They clearly understand the agenda, and I was talking with the panelists in the holding room and saying that the future is theirs. So it's actually very, very refreshing to hear such intelligent questions. There was a question on renewable energy and solar waste. As far as Tanzania is concerned, we are invested in renewable energy. In fact, all our electricity pretty much comes from renewable energy. We're still developing our regulations, and I am sure that we are taking into account solar waste, because a lot of the meetings that I go to, I hear this. With respect to the gentleman from the Polish gentleman from the Polish Institute, who will set the agenda for the next development agenda, I believe that the Global South will. We have the majority of the critical minerals, we have the majority of the youth, and the majority of the development speed is with us. For example, Africa is growing, most African countries are growing, their development is growing by about 4%, 5%, in Tanzania about 6.1. So I believe that the Global South will set the next development agenda. There was a very bright young gentleman over here who said that we should be thinking rather about duty than responsibility. I think he answered his own question, and that's a very good idea. You know, if we use duty instead of responsibility, maybe people or entrepreneurs will be more inclined to follow the rules and do more. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would respond to the two questions related to water and the industry. I think it's important for at least the larger portion of crowd sitting here to realize that India has 18% of the world's population, but is blessed only with 4% of the groundwater. And we have been depleting it very sharply, that the per capita availability has reduced by 25% in the last 70 years. Now that's alarming. We need to be responsible. Now on the other dimension about corporate accountability, we have regulations, but I think it's time for industries to move beyond that. And being the largest water company, we have demonstrated that. We have a packaging material called plastic. We ensure that we recycle 114% of the plastic that we put in. We actually take more than what we put into the market. And we replenish not 100%, but 470% of the water that we draw from the ground by putting water structures, recycling facilities, and working with the communities, restoring the water bodies. I think when corporates become responsible, though, if you're looking at the water consumption in India, the industry consumes only 8%. Largely, it is agriculture which is consuming most of the groundwater. But at least industry is where data is available and monitorable, and we could set the precedent in terms of setting an example. I think to the other point about the Global South and consensus, I don't think it will emerge from ideology. It will emerge from shared vulnerability and functional necessity, because we have the lived experience in managing scarcity. I think that is where it will lead to. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe on the question of who is going to write the next agenda 2030 and beyond. Well, I fully agree with Alexander Stubb's suggestion that India and the European Union should be in close conversation there and potentially even take a lead. But this is not a conversation to be had only between two world regions. It's a conversation that we need to have with all world regions, actually. And optimally speaking, state to state, yes, but also track 2 diplomacies play an important role. And here what we see at the moment is a number of commissions being formed. Yeah, if you think of the Ubuntu Commission in South Africa or the North-South Commission in Germany, or the Future of Development Cooperation Coalition initiated by members of the Biden administration. So, and bringing these different commissions together also, of course, is important. Bringing them together with Think 20 advisory process to the G20 advisory process to other plurilateral contexts. So right now, it's about having these conversations in many world regions in order to bring stakeholders, state but also non-state, on board. Just briefly on local adaptation and government engagement, I think was a question. I just want to underline the role of cities. It's very clear that a large part, also when we talk finance, finance and private sector involvement, a lot of that in the end takes place on city and local community levels, and it cannot be underlined enough. Thanks.
Thank you. I agree with my panelists that the future agenda is going to be set by Global South. India is a leading voice, but India is also inclusive when it comes to taking the world along in setting the development agenda. Few things from me. I would love to see a compact coming in from Global South that is anchored in human capital. The economies cannot grow until and unless these are resilient, where people have good health and people have opportunity to grow. A world where maternal and child death exists no more. And that's possible to see because the world is actually delivering a lot more innovation. The pace of development can be made faster as we embrace innovation in an equitable manner. I have my panelist who represents the industry as well. Industry has a huge role to play. At Gates Foundation, we are seeing industry deliver fantastic results, low cost, safe vaccines, diagnostics, innovations being delivered to save lives of mothers and children. At the same time, industry as well as government and domestic institution spurring research, spurring innovation to deliver agriculture and productivity growth at the back of making sure that women are included and they are the ones who are driving this growth. So from me, I think 2 points. One is a compact that human capital is foundational to economies and resilient growth. And the second thing is this economic growth should not be just looked at GDP growth, but it should be inclusive in nature. Thanks.
Thank you, Archana, and thank you for bringing us back to the central tenet of the panel, which is that people really should be at the heart of development design. I hope you enjoyed the discussion today. I think it has left me with a great sense of optimism that even though things are uncertain and difficult in the broader world, there are examples that each of the panelists spoke about of successes, of partnership, of cooperation, and as Archana was saying, of putting people at the center of problem solving and using technology for that. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to the audience as well.